Well, the 2023 NRL draw is here and the season's just over 100 days away, so we thought we'd take a look at some of the must-watch games that you should be keeping an eye out for once the season begins. First and foremost, we turn our attention to round 2 at Suncorp Stadium as the Brisbane Broncos and North Queensland Cowboys prepare to do battle in the once famous 4X Derby. Now, while it's wonderful that the Broncos now have a local rival in Brisbane in the Dolphins, it shouldn't be forgotten that this was once the showpiece event of the rugby league calendar, the 4X Derby between the Broncos and the Cowboys, especially following that thrilling grand final in 2015. Now, the match itself has lost a bit of its gloss and prestige over the years as both teams have had different but at the same time similar fortunes. But it's safe to say that they're both returning to the top of their game now. Obviously, we saw how well the Cowboys did last season, and the Broncos are on the improve and they're tipped to do even better in 2023. The teams and the players are certainly different than they were back in the halcyon days of 2016, but what hasn't changed is the passion and the hatred between these two teams. Next up on the calendar, we turn our attention many months forward to round 21 when the Penrith Panthers host the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs in what will mark Cameron Ciraldo's official return to the foot of the mountains, as well as that of Viliami Kikau. Now, it's a bit of a strange one, this one, because the NRL, in my opinion, have done very well to ensure that they're doubling up on all the kind of games that you want to be seeing more of in the 2023 season. But this is a fixture that would have caught plenty of attention had it taken place earlier in the draw, and I'm surprised that there's only one meeting between the two teams, not just given that Cameron Ciraldo moved, but also given the history between the two clubs. Now, the advantage to this game being in round 21 is that we'll have a very good idea of what the Bulldogs are capable of by this point in the season. And hopefully they're delivering on the expectations that are starting to build up around the Belmore club. But one thing's clear, the current Panthers playing group all still have a very soft spot for Cameron Ciraldo. They all love him, and that's something that he can ruthlessly exploit as he looks to gain an advantage over his former employer. Now, few people in the game would have a better understanding of just how the Panthers work and therefore how to bring them undone. Now, few people would know better than Ciraldo how the Panthers work and conversely how you can bring them undone. And I think that makes this a very compelling clash as we move towards the back end of the season. Then we turn to Magic Round in round 10, and once again it's the Broncos, but this time they're facing the Manly Sea Eagles. Now, why is this match interesting, I hear you say? Why would we care about the Broncos and the Sea Eagles? The reason this game will be worth watching is because of the announcement this week by Manly that Anthony Seibold will be taking the head coaching reins at Brookvale for the immediate future. And if there's any club who understands what can happen when Anthony Seibold is hastily appointed, it's the Brisbane Broncos. Few Broncos fans will likely ever forget the horrible time that they endured under Seibold's reign, and while fingers are still being pointed as to who was at fault for the terrible results in that period, the fans certainly haven't forgotten, and a lot of them are mystified by the fact that he's been able to regain employment as a head coach in the NRL. And this will be his chance to shut them all up and to show them exactly what he can do as he returns to Suncorp Stadium for, I think, the first time since his ill-fated spell at Brisbane. It promises to be an entertaining clash anyway, but when you add that level of spice and narrative to the storyline, it becomes must-watch television. Then we go back to round 2 for the West Tigers and the Newcastle Knights on a sunny Sunday afternoon, hopefully, at Leichhardt Oval. Now, both teams were absolutely terrible this year, and there are a number of questions over them in 2023, particularly around the likes of Kalen Ponga and Luke Brooks, respectively. Who will Brooks be playing for? If you believe Tim Sheens, it's definitely going to be the Tigers, but if you believe anyone else, then it might be Newcastle. But there's the extra layer of intrigue in this game as well, because Brooks isn't the only player being mentioned as a potential swap between the two clubs. There's also been David Klemmer and Tyson Frizzell from Newcastle, and just today we've heard that Jackson Hastings might be a Newcastle Knights target for the future as well. So who knows who's going to be playing for who when this game actually kicks off. But it could turn it into a kind of multifaceted revenge game that's going to make for compelling viewing. And we'll leave you with one more before we head off. We won't overburden you. The Dolphins. Yes, we are going to acknowledge the Dolphins in their clash against the Rabbitohs in round 7. Now, why is this game compelling? Why do I think that this Dolphins game is as much or possibly more compelling than their first derby against the Broncos? Because there's a coaching element. There is a narrative to this that more people are going to be talking about and exploring as the game approaches. Wayne Bennett and Jason Demetriou, the coaches of the respective teams, the Dolphins and the Rabbitohs respectively, have a very close relationship. They've known each other a long time, and Demetriou has worked with Bennett at a number of clubs and has been entrusted by Bennett many times. And of course, when Wayne Bennett finally left the South Sydney Rabbitohs, Jason Demetriou was finally promoted to head coach after many years of waiting in the wings, and he's done a remarkable job. A lot of people expected South to go much further back last year than they did, still making the preliminary final. So that's the intriguing part of this clash for me. Not so much what's going to take place on the field. We don't even know just how competitive the Dolphins are going to be just yet. But much like Seraldo against the Panthers, we are going to see Demetriou and Bennett finally go head-to-head in a meeting of the minds, a battle of wits between the master and the apprentice. I think it's going to be an enthralling contest, and there's going to be plenty of talk in the lead-up. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of love. I know obviously Wayne Bennett is renowned for his mind games, but I think he's not going to have too many bad things to say about what Demetriou's done at the Rabbitohs, and he's probably going to play the nice guy card. But that remains to be seen. And then, of course, there is the extra layer of intrigue with this one, with South Sydney cult icon Mark Nichols finally returning to face his old club. He's gone with Bennett to the Dolphins, and he's going to be leading from the front for that forward pack. It's a bit of an aging pack, but it's a bit of an aging pack, and they're going to need Nichols to be at his best. But this game is set up to be an absolute classic, and I know I'll be watching.